I'm Chris McDonough, a retired homicide detective. I've interviewed thousands of people, from serial killers to ministers. Welcome to the interview room. I love it when Buddy does the intro. You know, that little Jack Russell, boy, that picture just absolutely 100% speaks volumes about his personality, just taking over the table. Well, welcome everybody. We are absolutely excited to be here. As you can tell, we got an amazing panel in front of you. We got my dear friend, Mr. Greg Cooper, who I've known for a couple of weekends anyway. And down below him in the lower right-hand corner, you can pick him for an X or an O. Mr. Steve Johnson. Those of you who know Hollywood Squares know what I'm talking about. And then, of course, our special guest, Miss Vanessa from Unmasked. What a pleasure it is to have you here, Vanessa. How exciting it is to have you on our channel here tonight.
Thank you for having me.
You're very welcome, and thank you for coming. I ruined your show last night, and I apologize for. So I figured I'd make it up and, have you up here with these guys. So folks, just a little high level overview of what we're going to do here tonight. And first we're going to do some introductions and I got to talk about my buddy, Greg, first off here. This man, I've known for, a very, very, very long time. We are dear friends.
Maybe that's an error.
Exactly. Greg has been around. I'll let Greg tell you about Greg, but he's an FBI profiler, actually an instructor in Quantico. He used to teach criminal psychology, and he's brought a lot of profilers in when he ran as the ASAC for the unit. So, Greg, introduce yourself and tell our audience a little bit about who you are.
Sure, happy to. I started my law enforcement career out in Utah at Provo Police Department, and followed that up with a stint in a small police department in Utah, a city named Delta, which is southwest Utah, and they've got, I think, probably 2 traffic lights now. So it hasn't grown all that much since I was out there. Then I was rescued by the FBI, and kind of my heart's desire and dream to join the FBI for one particular reason. That was to become a profiler. I was first exposed to profiling when I was a young police chief in a small town. I went to a course put on by a couple FBI agents, Ken Lanning, who's still hanging in there with us, and Bill Hagmeyer also, who was a new agent in the unit at the time. And I can remember going up after that class. There's a 3-day profiling school at Salt Lake Community College, and saying, hey, I think I found my niche. This is what I want to do. How do I do it? So long story short, I had already applied to the FBI, and they were on a hiring freeze. But about a year, about 6-7 months later, that hiring freeze was removed, and then I was offered a position with the FBI, and fortunately was able to join the profiling unit within 5 years, my 5th year anniversary.
Wow.
I was there for 5 years and supervised the VICAP program, was a profiler in the Northwest Territory of the United States, taught 3 classes at the National Academy, and then returned to Provo as a police chief, and which is where I kind of started. And then I went back to the Department of Homeland Security for a number of years.
Yeah, I remember that piece.
Yeah.
You couldn't get away from it. They called you back in.
Yeah.
So, and-
The timing was good, and another good opportunity. I think we're just kind of a conglomerate of lots of experiences, and I've certainly had a great, exciting, adventurous career. Just
Yep.
one that
And now you're running the Cold Case Foundation. You're executive director for the Cold Case Foundation, which
yes.
tell
So
everybody about that.
We started the Cold Case Foundation about 7 years ago, and we provide resources to law enforcement agencies, funding in some capacities, and experts in various disciplines to review cases for law enforcement agencies and victims' families, trying to resolve homicides, unsolved homicides, and missing persons, unidentified remains, and sexual assaults where there appears to be serial characteristics. And we also provide training to law enforcement around the country. So consultation training at no expense to law enforcement agencies.
Yeah, and guys and gals, so you know, he's pretty humble. His sheets go for miles, and you know, he was in the unit, you know, for a very long time. Did a lot of high profile stuff, but we're going to get into that because Greg and I have a show coming up where we're going to talk about what it's about being a profiler, and so look forward to that coming here on the interview room. So Greg, thanks for being here, bud. I look forward to hearing your insight here on this, restraining order thing from the guns about Millete, from Maya and her husband. Now, and just for the record, also everything you hear tonight is opinionated only. It's not necessarily, a conscious decision in relationship to calling anybody a suspect or anything like that. We're not doing that. We don't speculate. And that's one of the reasons I invited this young lady below us, Miss Vanessa from Unmasked, because I have watched her channel and have had the privilege of being invited to her program. And she just tells it the way it is. And there's no, speculation. There's no, guessing. It literally is she's chasing the facts. So Vanessa, thank you for being here, and tell everybody, if you have not subscribed to her channel, get over there, press that button, then ring the bells, do all the things that need to be done. So Vanessa, thank you for being here. Tell everybody a little bit about your channel and what you guys are doing.
Well, I'm Vanessa. I have a true crime YouTube channel called Unmasked, like you said. I've been a true crime fan for most of my life since I was a little girl. And I have a degree in psychology. I used to work in insurance, and I no longer do that. I do this full time, and I love it. It's I think, most fulfilling thing I've done in my life so far.
Awesome. I think my see, this is what happened to her last night. This happened again. So, the Wi-Fi gods are getting me back tonight again. But you're in good shape tonight, though, Vanessa. If I drop off, you're in good shape with these two characters. So, okay, so I've saved Steve for last on purpose. Guys and gals, between Greg and Steve, there is a ton of experience in the house tonight. Steve is just a master, and he's also a professional in forensic statement analysis. He's called all around the world. He trains law enforcement currently. They come to his classes. He also trains some folks in the public sector as well. But what you're going to hear tonight is basically, the real deal between Greg, Steve, Vanessa, and, I'll just kind of sit here and pretend I know something. And then, simultaneously, we'll have a really good time. But Steve, tell everybody a little bit about you. You've been in this business a very long time, and, this is going to be fun. So introduce yourself, bud.
Yeah, it is going to be fun. I appreciate it. So I've been in this line of work for probably the last 31, 32 years. And 28 years of that was spent at a police department in Arizona. And during that time, I was not only a trainer, but I taught at the police academy. I taught interview and interrogation. And then later on, I started teaching this this skill set of statement profiling. Was a forensic. I think we took the basic of forensic statement analysis and built upon it. And on top of that, I got into forensic handwriting analysis, and I was profiling people through the handwriting. And I've always been fascinated with the behavioral analysis, human behavior and how it works and how it portrays and what the brain does. And a 28-year police career was just, I was in a front row seat to this theater of human behavior. And it was fascinating to me. And I'm so grateful. I've been blessed to be able to continue on now with training law enforcement, and being associated with people like you is just an honor to be recognized as such. And let me just tell you, Chris, you said I've trained law enforcement, and that's what the classes are geared for. We just launched a brand new website last night. So I want everyone to go to that new website, www.truthtolies.com. And there on the bottom of the homepage is a free booklet. It's a free PDF booklet that talks about what keeps us from recognizing the truth or getting to the truth. Why are we deceived? So go get your free book. And on that website, we also have an online course that up till now has only been available to criminal investigators. Now it is available to the general public. For all you true crime enthusiasts, this is it. This is what the best of the best, this is the training that they get. And right now I have it available for law enforcement at law enforcement pricing. So it won't last for long. I will be adding more courses as we go. I'll give them add some shorter courses and whatnot. That'll be a little bit more geared to the general public, but this is a great opportunity to learn exactly what the top tier investigators are learning. And it'll help you. This applies not only to criminal investigators, but insurance investigators, corporate investigators, HR people investigating sexual harassment complaints, workplace injury complaints, attorneys. We have health care, mental health therapists in the class, arson investigators, attorneys, prosecutors, parents. You want to know a little bit more about what your teenager's saying to you or not saying to you? This will let you know. It's just fantastic. So it's a great opportunity. And I'm grateful to be here. This is an exciting case. I'm grateful for the opportunity to be able to help out on it.
Well, we wouldn't have. We love you, buddy, and we would not have selected anybody better in the industry. You are the best. I think, between you and Greg, we've got the top two guys in my estimation in the industry. And I think tonight, folks, if you've never been here, also go over to the cold case. I'm just pitching these guys real fast, and then we're going to deep dive, and you'll know why I'm doing it up front. Because once we get started, it's a lot of fun, but it's interesting too simultaneously, because we are talking about a real active case here. And so the information that will be presented theoretically would be presented in a law enforcement environment as well. So that said, go over to the Cold Case Live. They have also podcasts and a variety of other stuff over there, and you guys release that stuff all the time, Greg. And if you can support that foundation, please feel free to jump in. Greg, I told people recently, we just did a case. I didn't give them the details, of course, but we were over in Siberia, right? And so there's a lot of things that we do behind the scenes, and because it's a 501c3, we can always use your help. So that said, let's get started. I want to thank all of our mods right up front. We cannot do this without you, all of our members. We sure love you all. We're grateful you're part of this true crime community and part of our channel. And if you could share this out or hit that subscribe button, we're always grateful. And if you can't become a member, that's okay. The fact that you're here is more than enough for the interview room. We love having you here, and we're grateful that you're here. Okay, dollars and cents don't count. Okay, the fact that you're here is why we do what we do here. So that said, okay, so Steve, Greg, and Vanessa, we're going to go over the 80-page restraining order that was issued by a judge in San Diego County. And we've got the back room up there, D-Man. And also we're going to put Steve's website. We'll put Vanessa's channel and, of course, the Cold Case Foundation. We'll put all of those links below at the conclusion of this evening's program, so everybody can, cross-reference of everything we're talking about. And, of course, Vanessa's page, I actually profile it on my page as one of the channels that I support. So that said, D-Man, let's go ahead and put up the first page here. We're gonna jump out right into this. So the first 4 pages, we went over this a couple of nights ago, 4 or 5 nights ago, guys. Just an FYI, and we found some things, but the more I looked at it, the more I thought, you know what, I need to have Greg and Steve weigh in on this and just kind of get your takeaway. And so I kind of want to, Greg, both of you guys, we'll do the push-pull on this. So Steve, as we kind of roll, I'll read it, and then you can you'll kind of stop me as we're going along. Sound like a good plan?
Sounds great.
Okay. All right. Let me move this over here. Sorry, I'm just looking off site here. Okay. So attachment 3, reasons I disagree. Line 2, I, Larry Millete, declare as follow. I am the respondent in the above referenced matter. I have personal knowledge of the facts set forth in this declaration and, if called as a witness, could and would testify completely to such facts under oath. Now, first of all, he had, I think, approximately 17 guns taken. He had 6 pistols, 5 ARs, some disassembled in different places. Some of those weapons he also moved to various locations, one to his uncle. And then, of course, the PD and a variety of gun dealers are holding these weapons on behalf of, I'm assuming they were already in custody at the shops. And the court just said, well, just leave them there until there's a disposition on this. So there's been a couple of hearings. This was his response to the initial seizure of the weapons. Okay. So line 5, it is my desire to have peace, safety, stability, health, prosperity, love, and countless blessings for myself, my wife, for my children, my family, friends, neighbors, co-workers, my community, and people around me. It is also the desire of my heart to protect and defend my children, my wife, my parents, myself, my home from this dangerous, toxic environment and people. Steve, what do you say?
Well, I think that first of all, we can call out the what I think is the obvious, in that he's Superman. I mean, this is like a Superman statement here, that he wants this. He names all these things. I lost count of how many he named. There's peace, safety, stability, health, prosperity, love, countless blessings for myself. And now he names all these people for who it is. And it basically includes everybody. There's no one that's not included in this. He wants love and everything for everybody around him. And it's the desire of his heart. And he said, in addition to that, he said, it is also desire of my heart to protect and defend himself, his wife, his parents, and home. And then he adds in, from this dangerous, toxic environment and people. And so he never mentioned anything about anything that is toxic, dangerous, a toxic environment, a dangerous and toxic environment, and who those people are. And so this is obviously something that is in his mind that he has either not been able to articulate, or it's something in the back of his mind that he's thinking about that he, for whatever reason, did not put in this affidavit at this point in time.
Great.
Coop, I'm wondering what your take is on that.
Sure. Let's see, some of the things that we look at from a profiling perspective are behaviors and consistency and patterns of behavior. And so when we read what his desire is, and we compare that and contrast it to some of the behavior that he's manifesting, it just creates questions, of course. He says it's his desire to have peace, safety, stability, health, prosperity, love, and countless blessings for himself, for his wife. Now we know that he doesn't participate in searching for his wife. That's a conflict for me. He's saying he wants one thing, but his actions suggest some questions. For his children, he mentions his children as well, and yet his children aren't allowed to see his wife's family. For his family, and I would think that his family includes Maya's family. And
good point.
And those children would want to have connection with that family as well. Well, that's not being allowed, and so there's some inconsistencies and conflicting statements with behavior, and so we look at that and certainly ask the question and wonder why.
Okay.
So those are the things
Vanessa,
that focus on to me.
Okay, Vanessa, any thoughts?
Yeah, kind of building off what Steve said, when I was reading through this, I got the impression that it's very important to him to either be perceived as a hero or a victim. He seems to vacillate between the two throughout the whole response. And then the other thing I noticed was when he talks about this dangerous, toxic environment that he needs to protect his family from, when you get to the exhibits where it shows the correspondence, from what I saw, I didn't see anything dangerous or toxic.
Yeah.
I saw people reaching out to say, look, we just want you to come clean, and where is your wife? And, think of your kids. I saw nothing dangerous or toxic in those at all.
Well, and we haven't gotten to that area yet, but the number 9, he starts identifying what's caused or what's influencing those blessings, that which has prevented him from enjoying those blessings, and he blames it on his wife. Right. The result of his wife's leaving our home and has not returned.
Yeah.
Well, that suggests that she left on her own volition, that she wasn't taken, she wasn't abducted, that there was no criminal activity associated with it, but that she left on her own volition. Well, certainly there's a lot of questions around that. But immediately, that which has been those blessings that have been prevented from being enjoyed for himself and all his children, his family, his friends, his coworkers, and community, people around, is because of his wife leaving her home and has not returned.
Yeah. And to follow up a little bit more,
Yep.
I love, Coop, what you said about that he mentioned his wife. He wants all these blessings for himself and for his wife and his children. But like you said, he has done nothing to help find his wife. And going into this, I as I was looking this over, I wrote a note at the very top, right in the beginning, that what we expect a de facto victim husband, so his wife is her leaving as a mystery. The natural response for someone like that would to be beating the drums, leading the march, making noise as much as he can to find my wife. We're going to do everything we can to find her. And he has done just the opposite of that. And that is absolutely contrary to what human nature dictates, that that one would do when you're really concerned about your missing loved one. And Vanessa had a great point that he contradicts himself in his behavior. He goes from being this victim, or in this case, he starts out being Superman, and then goes to victim, and then he casts blame. And I don't think people that are Superman and heroes are going to cast blame. They're going to take responsibility and go out and beat the drum and do everything they can to make something happen. But he doesn't. Now he starts the blaming, and this is just where it starts. It's going to continue on, but the onus of him not having all these blessings is upon his wife. And since Coop mentioned this line 9, and Chris, I don't know if I'm getting ahead of myself or not here.
You're fine. Go ahead. Keep going, Steve.
He says, unfortunately, I have been prevented from enjoying these blessings as a result of my wife's leaving our home and has not returned. That is what we call in my line of work a passive statement, meaning I always ask, how would I phrase this? If my wife actually left the house, left the home, abandoned the family, nothing. Well, I'll just put myself in his shoes. Her disappearance would be a mystery. I don't know if there was foul play or if she left on her own, but he's putting the onus here on his wife leaving on her own. That's what he's insinuating, that she did it on her own, of her own volition, no foul play. And so I think I would say, as a result of my wife, because my wife left our family, because my wife chose to abandon their kids, because my wife chose to and make this, put the onus of responsibility on his wife. He's leaving it passive, if you can see what I mean, of my wife's leaving our home. It's not, so my wife's leaving, that leaves it open to the possibility that she left not of her own volition, but some other way. It's just passive. If you see what I'm talking about here, it's subtle, but it's telling. And these subtle things, that's what the brain leaks out, what it knows. And I think in this case, it's leaking out some information here that he doesn't want to commit that she actually left on her own. He's wanting to say that she left, but he's not wanting to say that she did it on her own, because I think he might have other information in his brain. And that's the way our brain operates. It will form words like this in order to protect us. That's what the brain does. It protects us from harm, whether it's physical harm or stressful harm. And there's being deceptive is very stressful. Our brains were designed to tell the truth. And when we don't, it will pick words to lessen the stress of that deception. And I think that's what's going on here.
Interesting.
Yeah,
so go ahead.
It's interesting too, Chris, that the first pronoun he identifies in the second word is himself. I have been prevented. Now we're moving from himself, his wife, his children, family, friends, coworkers, community, and people. Now all of a sudden it is about who this is about. It's I have been prevented from enjoying.
There you go. I agree with that.
Yeah.
It is in the room.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
What were you going to say, Coop? Something else you were going to say? I cut you off.
Only again to just that the implication here is the way that he stated these blessings as a result of my wife's leaving our home and has not returned. To me, he's trying to imply that she left on her own, free will, and it implies abandonment.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I see that. So I'm going to unpack lines 9 through 21. I'm going to read those, and then we'll circle back and dig into that. Does that sound good?
Sure.
Let's do it.
Okay. So, and Vanessa, was there anything you wanted to add based on what you just heard? I'm sorry, I should have asked.
No, the only thing I pick up there is with the blame it seems that he's putting on Maya. It makes me worried from a mom's perspective, I guess, what's being told to the children.
Yeah, good point.
Yeah. Hey, Chris,
solid
just
point.
one more.
Yeah, go, Steve.
I just glanced at this and I just noticed that what he did here, this is real interesting from my perspective, that the last thing he said there, end of 7 and part of last part, well, all of line 8, from this dangerous, toxic environment, and without any explanation as to what that is, but what he's doing there, we can tell now from the next line where he puts the onus of everything that he has been denied on his wife. He's actually relating this dangerous, toxic environment to his wife. It's connected up there, and so again, it's insight into what likely was the nature of their relationship. That it was probably a dangerous, toxic environment. I think he's giving us some information there, and I think that we may see something to back that up later on in the statement.
Yeah, interesting, because he does add and people.
And people.
And people. So he segregates the two. He separates them.
Yeah, it is two separate things. Yeah, awesome.
Yeah. Good catch. Good catch. So 9 through 20.
Just a thought real quick. I'm sorry, Chris. Just a thought.
No, you're fine.
Going back to what Steve said about the toxic environment and people. And then he goes on to explain who's really causing that, which is because of his wife's leaving. And then to complicate matters, he moves on with respect to his wife's family and their attorney, who's been on TV uttering those statements. But what are your thoughts, Steve, with respect to, and Vanessa, with respect to this reference to toxic environment? Could this also be, and people, could this also be a reflection, a throwback to what the environment must have been like there within the home before she allegedly left her home and has not returned?
Yeah, that's exactly what I was trying to get across, is that I think that is exactly what the nature of their relationship was prior to her leaving. That it was a not only a toxic environment, but it was a dangerous, toxic environment. That's what and I think it's a strong psychological presence there or argument that is the case. And Vanessa, with your psychology background, I'm curious what you say about this, because he mentions that and goes directly into blaming his wife now for all these issues, the reason he doesn't have all these problems or all these blessings. And it's just in direct correlation to a dangerous, toxic environment. So I would agree with that 100%.
I do as well. I took the same thing when I was reading it. It's almost as if he blames her for wanting to leave. That's what caused all of this in his mind. Because at some point, this is just my opinion, of course, it became toxic enough where she decided it was better to leave than to stay, and he lost control. So I do believe that he feels that that's the issue. When she decided to, consult with the divorce attorney, that was the toxic environment, and that's when things went bad.
Right.
Good point.
That she made it toxic.
Right.
Yeah, I agree with that. Good point.
Yep. Awesome, guys. This is great. So let's unpack 9 through 21. So I'll read it for our folks who are, some of our listeners are hard of hearing, or seeing. So unfortunately, I've been prevented from enjoying these blessings as a result of my wife's leaving our home and has not returned. To complicate matters, my wife's family and their attorney have been appearing on television, uttering statements implying and highly suggesting to the public and the media that I am to be blamed for her 6-month-long disappearance. I am not responsible for her disappearance, and I have fully cooperated with the police investigation. The Chula Vista Police Department spokeswoman said there was no indication of foul play. I am not a suspect according to the police authorities, but nevertheless, the Chula Vista police have searched my home twice, first in January 23rd, 2021, and second in May 7th, 2021, and removed many things, including my car and all of my guns that they took from the large safe, deposit metal container, and many other things, Exhibit 3. I am not in possession of any guns at this present time, but I am afraid for my safety and the safety of my family and my home, because I've been receiving threatening, angry, insulting, accusatory, malicious, and hateful messages from people. The only words to come out of their mouths were negative and derogatory statements towards me. These people are even implicating my parents, who are retired and has done everything that they can to protect and serve our family. Their language reveals the venom that emanates from their hearts. Wow, there's a lot there.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot there. Who wants to start?
From what I picked up right there, it's obvious to me that appearance is extremely important to him and how he's perceived by everyone. He doesn't like the derogatory comments towards himself, but he has no problems taking swipes at Maya, in my opinion. The other thing I noticed is, like I said at the beginning, and that did stick out to me. I even went through and read the messages twice to make sure, where he contradicts himself with saying that he's in danger and how horrible and scary the messages are when they're not. I found them to be very reasonable under the circumstances. Just think of your children, do the right thing. I didn't see one threat.
Yeah, I agree. They're rather benign messages. There's no, and he contradicts them. He actually states that himself. After he says that they were threatening, angry, insulting, accusatory, malicious, and then what he does is contradicts that. He says the only words to come out of their mouths were negative and derogatory statements towards me. There's no threat. He can't even say that they actually said that they were threatening him in any way. And I agree. I did the same thing, Vanessa. I looked through those exhibits, and I was looking for something that was threatening, and there's absolutely nothing that is threatening there. So the other thing I picked up on too was that up in line 12, he said, "I am not responsible for her disappearance, and I have fully cooperated with the police investigation. The Chula Vista Police Department spokeswoman said there was no indication of foul play. I am not a suspect, according to the police authorities." And I just thought, wait a minute. Why did he add that word "according" in there? It just presents a little bit of doubt to me that he can't say that he didn't do it, but I don't know. It's subtle, but it's indication that there might be something in his brain that says that he actually is a suspect. And then what adds to that is that there's a little word in there that refutes or minimizes what came before it, and that's the word "but." I am not a suspect, according to the police authorities, but nevertheless, the Chula Vista have searched my house. And that word "but," it actually minimizes what came before it. So when we always look at those little words like that, they're meaningful, and there's a reason that the brain sent them to the tongue or pen so quickly. And it's because it's minimizing what came before it. And so I think that he's actually giving away a little bit there, that he knows that he has something to do with his wife's disappearance, in my opinion.
And Hope, thank you. I don't know if he is a scuba diver. Thank you for that question. So Coop, I can see your gears are going. I've been around you long enough. What do you got?
I'm going to go back here. Again, he's blaming his wife's family. Their attorney now, it's been on TV, implying that and highly suggesting to the public and the media that I am to be blamed for her 6-month-long disappearance. So he's keeping it quite generic. Simply she's just disappeared. like in thin air. I'm not responsible for a disappearance, but that leaves open, doesn't it, other alternatives. I'm not responsible for disappearance. That focuses, that term disappearance, in my mind, restricts a lot of other options that are not addressed in that statement. And he's fully cooperated with the police investigation. I don't know that that's accurate. Only the police can tell us that. The Chula Vista Police Department spokesman said there's no indication of foul play. He also said that he's not a suspect. Well, I know the police department has not identified him as a suspect, but the fact that they've been to his house twice on a search warrant suggests that he is someone of interest in the investigation. And I know officially they've never identified him in anything outside of that. And maybe they've not even identified him as a person of interest yet. But it seems,
and I don't think it would have any. Yeah, go ahead.
It just seems to me that also with respect to him being blamed by the family and implying that he was responsible, I've not seen everything with respect to their media interaction, but everything I have seen suggests that they are hoping that she is alive and returns. And I've heard them voice that much more and at the exclusion of ever identifying him as being directly responsible for her disappearance.
Yep. And Vanessa, I have a treat for you from one of your folks on your channel, Father Snuffles.
Oh. Thank you.
I love that guy. Thank you. Great point, Coop. And that is interesting. Anything else, Vanessa or Steve, you guys want to add? And I'll keep moving here. Well, the one thing that jumped at me, and I'm sorry, I just asked you a question and I just said something. One thing that jumped at me is, to the Superman complex in the very beginning, okay, and then he shifts it back to a family, a personal scenario, right? At first he's taking care of the community, then he shifts it back to the family, but that language in line 21 revealed the venom that emanated from their hearts. Wow, Steve, Coop, Vanessa, unpack that. What's your play on that? What's your thought?
I thought he just came across really, in my opinion, I felt he came across very angry and very bitter throughout the statement.
Interesting.
And definitely,
It just underscores, I think, his reflection on that he's a victim. He presents himself as the victim here.
right.
Yeah.
Still fails to talk much about Maya.
Yeah, the word, just the fact that he used those words with really nothing to back that up. Those words came from somewhere, and I think it underscores what he is feeling, maybe what he's experienced, personal thoughts about the world around him. This comes from him, and so I think this is something that's very, it's in his mind and heart himself. I don't think it's really something that's coming from other people.
So you think this is a self-reflection?
I do.
Interesting.
Yeah, I've seen this over and over and over. This self-reflection portrayed in their statements, and people. It's very typical. It's human nature. If we feel one thing and we tend to project what our perception is, what our feelings are onto other people, and it happens all the time. And I think that's one of the things that we're seeing here. And I like to take it. I see something like this, and we saw it just a little bit earlier when we talked about from this dangerous, toxic environment. I think that's a self-reflection there of how their relationship was, before Maya left. And I think this also is coming from a point of self-reflection as well.
Yeah, I agree with that. Absolutely.
So, and Coop, dig a little deeper if you could. Help people understand why, folks, after there's jeopardy and, a problem, why they, project, this secret life into the public persona. Are you tracking me where I'm headed there?
I think so. If not, redirect. But I think that anytime we get into an interview interrogation setting, we are very sensitive to voluntary statements versus involuntary statements. And when I say involuntary, not statements that are forced. I'm talking about conscious voluntary versus unconscious involuntary statements. And that oftentimes people will make statements that reveal their thoughts and feelings unconsciously. They'll make those statements and what we refer to as admissions. And we take a look at a lot of these little statements, and as an investigator, we would look at that and say, well, I think we're moving down the right track. It further verifies these tiny but very significant admissions to at least trigger further investigation, further questioning, and also an adaptation to the approach that's being used in that interview process. Is that what you're referring to, Chris?
Yeah, exactly. No, that's exactly where I was hoping you were going to go. And so that, Steve, that kind of lays out into what you were saying about how, we're basically good people, but sometimes, the subconscious mind just kind of lets it happen. And this is kind of a qualifier to that, where, the venom that emanated from their hearts. I mean, that's a really personal, strong statement. I mean, any thoughts on that, Steve or Vanessa?
Yeah, you're right. It is a personal, strong statement. And, what I do is when I look at, so it's something that, Coop referred to as admissions, and there's a lot of embedded admissions in these statements. People will give away information that they have no idea that they're giving away. We call that also brain leakage, meaning that the brain cannot withhold. We can rape, murder, rob, steal, commit arson, whatever it is. We can do it. We can commit all these crimes. That when it comes to concealing it and talking about it and concealing it, from our language, we can't do it. We can't do it. The brain has the information, and it will reach out and it will grab words that encompass the point we're trying to get across, but it also grabs words that still also encompass what it knows and we're trying to conceal. And so our brain always works against us. All you have to know is how to mine that information out of the words. And that's where we come in. We recognize the context of why those words were picked by his brain at that particular time. And I'm gonna refer. So I know you guys, you recognize patterns in the investigations and behaviors, and there's patterns in his language. And we saw one earlier that I'm going to compare to what's going on right here. Back up to where we were talking when he said from this dangerous, toxic environment and people. And then right after that, he went into putting the onus of blame upon Maya. And so we were saying, well, that's not only is he using some passive language, but he's blaming Maya for everything, including this. He's giving this self-reflection of this dangerous, toxic relation in relation to talking about Maya. Now he's saying the language revealed, their language revealed the venom that emanated from their hearts, which I also believe is self-reflection. And it's going to be related to what comes next, just like that last one I just mentioned was related to what came after and he was talking about Maya. So we're going to go into this next section here.
Thank you.
And you'll see what I mean. And also, before we get into this next section, I want to I want to go back in time, and when we were breaking down the Larry Milletti interview, remember that in the beginning?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
when we were going through that, we realized that Larry, without knowing it, had revealed a timeline. And we all agreed when we were going through that statement that, oh my goodness, I think he just revealed that the timeline here is that Maya went missing at night. And he was trying to say that it was during the day that she went with friends or family or went somewhere, went jeeping or whatever it was, and disappeared during the day. But we actually saw in his language that she was gone the night before. Okay, so with that in mind, I'll turn it back over to you guys and for any other comments. But with that in mind, Chris, as you move forward, I think we're going to see something significant here.
Yeah, and we'll point folks to that interview. It's one of our first statements we broke down. And so go back through through my videos, and you'll find that one, and it will make sense of what Steve just kind of laid out here. And so, Vanessa, you want to unpack that, and then we'll go to Coop. Anything that comes to your mind?
With the venom, I agree with what they said. I personally had interpreted that as him just kind of deflecting his own emotions there in that part. But
the only other thing
Cool.
I would add, Chris, the only other thing I would add is that their language revealed the venom that emanated from their hearts. I think there is a very broad reference. He doesn't identify specifically. He does make reference to the police department spokesman. But as you look at his history, from the time Maya disappears, to use his terminology, something had to trigger that disappearance. The condition of the relationship, whatever may have happened just prior. We know that there are what we refer to as precipitating stressors that build up where people will eventually act out in dealing and handling those stressors, and that which we call triggering events. So their language, the types of toxic environment manifestations there has to do, I think, with what was happening in the home, as we've mentioned, but actually what was said between each other. And that venom that may have been expressed during verbal battles, arguments, accusations, etc., was probably manifest very, very well right before her disappearance.
Yeah, well, and remember, he does gloss over the fact that they had, some kind of argument or disagreement, right? Remember,
that's right.
First statement that he
in fact,
makes.
He does make reference to that, doesn't he? A disagreement.
Yeah. And you know what strikes me here, just kind of dovetailing in what you guys have said, is there's another shift in his thought process here where he goes now back to the community. Okay. And so he's gone from, I need to save the community, to, by the way, this is all my wife's fault. And let me tell you about the community I want to save. And so is that part of the pattern that you're seeing, Steve? Right?
Yeah.
Right. Vanessa? Right? So
Absolutely.
I'm only going to read 22 and 23 and get your takeaway on this, okay? He goes, my neighbor even mentioned about mysterious bang sounds recorded behind our residence on the night, to your point, Steve, good catch, on the night my wife was last seen. Wow. And you nailed that. You nailed that, like 3 months ago. Okay?
Yeah.
And go ahead.
Mic drop.
Mic drop. Exactly. Mic drop. Yeah, exactly. Thoughts? Anybody?
Hey, I think that this not only confirms what we saw in his original interview, I think this is what Coop was referring to as the embedded admissions. He is telling us that he knows that Maya, the last time she was seen was that night. and my word, this language of mysterious bang sounds recorded behind our residence. I think that what he's doing there is this is actually kind of typical of people that have guilty knowledge. And I kind of refrain from calling people guilty before they're proven guilty, but this is typical of people that have guilty knowledge, that they will call out the audibles that they think are going to be brought into light, brought into question. And so they will call them out and they'll try to give an explanation as to why those are there. This is actually one of the highest levels of sensitivity that we look for when we're profiling a statement. It's right here. And he has this acute need to explain these bang sounds now that he knows that his neighbor heard him. Somebody else knows somebody heard him and they called him out. He knows this is going to get out. And so he's going to try to paint this a little bit different way. Guys, for me, this is an admission that whatever happened with Maya happened at night, and there was a bang sound in relation to it. It goes right hand in hand with what he said before. I'm so glad that we have that prior interview, that we were able to analyze that. And if you go back and you listen to that or look it over, you'll see that this is very, very significant, and it affirms what we saw there.
Yeah, and I saw a comment that says we're in the court of public opinion and we can deem somebody guilty. That's not what we're doing here at all. Me too. But what we're doing here is we're analyzing a statement that he wrote. This is his statement. This isn't our statement. Yeah. And this is just our opinion related to that statement, measuring our experience against it. So the one thing we don't do, and all of us know this on this panel, is we're not saying Larry's the guy. Okay. We're saying that Larry's saying he feels that some things are inappropriate, and we're just commenting on the things that he feels, measuring it against our experience. So I love to see those kind of comments, but at the same time, if you put them in my chat room, I'm going to call you out. Okay. I'm that kind of guy. Okay. So we appreciate you being here, but those are the kind of things that, if you want to support Larry, go ahead. That's up to you. Okay. I'm not calling him one way or another. Okay. So that said, so he goes on and he then lays out, in verse 23, an attorney working for my wife's family even came to my house in order to gain entry and access to our house. Well, we know that's Billy Little. And actually, Billy, he goes on to say the attorney pretended that he was from the Naval Criminal Investigative Service. And so I asked Billy directly, I said, hey, did you project yourself at NCIS? He goes, no. He said, he asked me if I was with NCIS, and I told him, no, I'm an attorney, and I'm here for Mary, Chris, and Richard, and Maya, and the family. And he allowed him into the house, and they chatted it up for a little while. Okay, so that I find that's a kind of he's still hanging his hat on that particular situation in of itself, in appearance anyway. He appeared several times on television and made statements suggesting that I am responsible for my wife's absence. My wife's sister and family have also made negative statements against me. This created an environment of hate and anger against me and motivated people to leave threatening and malicious messages on our doorstep, front door, text messages, and through the mail. And that's the exhibits 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. Thoughts on that?
Just a thought on when he makes reference to the bang sound again. That's going back to what Steve said, and I agree. That goes back to admissions in my mind, or to the point where that is so significant to him that reference, that information that has come out, it it has affected him so much that he seems to say here, this is one of the most important things that I need to bring attention to and respond to, because most likely it's going to come up ultimately, not just in the investigation, but sub-investigation in the event that it goes further, that he has to address it. So it's a significant event in my mind, and that's why he has to say something about it, because it has nothing to do with all these blessings and privileges that have been taken from him. That those bang sounds have nothing to do with the case that he's trying to make to the judge as to why these weapons should be returned to me. In fact, Julie, it strengthens the case not to give them back in the event that there was a, quote, bang sound associated with a weapon. That was coming from.
And Julie makes a comment here. Coop says, why would Larry change normal patterns of seeing Mary, Chris, and Richard? They are so loving. The children, they are so loving. The children suffer from this. Yeah, we totally agree, Julie. So thank you for that. Finish your thought. I'm sorry. I just wanted to get that in while it was up.
Well, then he just continues to make the case of why he's the victim, why everybody has turned against him. But to my knowledge, I've not seen anything to really support that allegation. They have been faithful, I think, in trying to put forth a good faith effort that she is alive and that they want her to return. And I don't recall anything where they made a direct allegation against him. Only that he has not participated with her family to provide access to the children.
Interesting. Yep.
Yeah.
Vanessa, Steve, any thoughts?
I pretty much had similar thoughts. I took it as an attempt to, I guess, manipulate the investigation and kind of explain away any red flags, maybe even, to prepare for any kind of defense. I don't know. It seemed like he pinpointed all of the things that people have been talking about that maybe have been bothering him the most. And just to kind of throw that out there in case he needs it later and explain it away. That's how I took it.
Yeah. And I think we can all agree, even, I'll read Lindsay's statement here. He said she was home on Friday in his original statement, but the mysterious bangs were recorded on Thursday. Why mention the bangs if she was supposedly home the next day, according to his own words?
That's exactly what we're saying here is, it's like, it's this acute need to explain when really no one probably would have asked, but he knows that his neighbor has, I don't know what the recorded, I don't know anything about recorded sounds. But what I do know is there were bangs. He's calling out the audible. There were mysterious bangs that night, the night before, or the night, he says the night Maya was last seen. So I think he's telling us there, he's making these admissions. Number one, there were bang sounds. And number two, it was nighttime. And number three, that's when he knows that she was last seen. So he can't even say that she was there the next day. I mean, if she was there the next day, then somebody would have seen her the next day, but he's not saying that. He's saying at night, that's when she was last seen. So there's three different things embedded in that admission right there. And I directly correlated that to his passive language that he used earlier about my wife's leaving our home. He's not saying that she did it he's implying she did it on her own volition, but he's not actually saying that. And so I think that I connected those two things up.
Yeah. And there are really no reasons. He's supposed to be making a case for himself to get those weapons returned to him. These reasons that he identifies don't support that or strengthen that request.
It weakens it.
Yeah.
Yeah. His conscience is eating him alive. And tell us that. Yeah. Great point. Yeah. And you know what's also, I think we all can agree that, is there a possibility that she could have walked away? Of course, there's always that possibility, right? Sure. That, she could be out, somewhere. However, then the other side of the coin, and I think this is where sometimes we cross over this idea of the difference between probable cause and reasonable doubt. Okay? Probable cause is what law enforcement develop. Probable cause to make an arrest. Okay? So we're coming from an investigative perspective. Reasonable doubt is what DAs and the court system does to prove the crime beyond a reasonable doubt. So as law enforcement, if we were to apply reasonable doubt to this statement currently, then there would never be probable cause to arrest an individual. And I'm not saying this for him. I'm just talking in general terms, okay? Law enforcement is held to a standard of probable cause. To a judge, is there enough probable cause to A, go get a search warrant, B, make an arrest of some sort and present that individual to Lady Justice in the court system, where she wears a blindfold and she has two equal scales. And then that is up to the district attorney to prove to a jury beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay? That is not the law enforcement's responsibility. Law enforcement's responsibility is to keep the public safe, keep those children safe, keep all of us safe. And the standard to make that happen is probable cause. Okay? I always like to point that out because, we get hung up on, we're throwing people under the bus or this or that. No, that's not what we're doing. Okay. We're just trying to, see, if there is something here that, potentially could be, problematic. And so far, I'm leaning on the side of, there is. There's things that are problematic here now, but that's up to, we're only on page 6. Okay? We're only on page 6. I think this could probably go for 4 hours. So we're not going to, but I'm just giving you guys, right? Is he helping the prosecution? Yeah, maybe. I don't know. He's helping probable cause. Thank you, Infamous. Okay?
He is definitely laying out things the prosecution can anticipate from the defense perspective.
Yeah, and because in verse 25, okay, and quite frankly, I always love the idea of when somebody says, well, you're giving the defense too much. Okay. The best, right, guys? I mean, how many homicides have we solved where you just put it all out on the table? If the defense wants to subpoena this YouTube channel, go ahead. You're not going to like what I say about your client, but you're more than welcome to put me on the stand, right? You know what I mean?
Well, the defense has the right through discovery, all the evidence that's out there that led to the probable cause to charge, arrest, and then try. So the defense has access to all of that information, wherever it comes from. And what they're going to be focused on is not what we have to say, but exactly what the prosecution is going to have to say and the strategy that they intend on using. And the prosecution has to disclose all of that. They're not going to come up at the last minute with some kind of a mystery witness. That doesn't happen. They have to disclose all that information because the presumption in the courts is that we are innocent until proven guilty.
Right. That's right. And any defense attorney that would subpoena, a couple of former homicide guys, you probably want a new attorney quickly, because because by the time it's over, I used to tell all my friends, you want to get out of jury duty just when they voir dire, you just tell them one of your close friends is a homicide guy. And he said, yeah, most of them were guilty. Not all of them, but most of them. The moment you say that, they're going to say, juror number 6, you're excused. Okay, so anybody out there, that's a tip for you. Okay, that said, I want to go back into line 24, 25, and 26 because and 7. So he goes, line 24. He appeared several times, and he's still talking about the attorney for the family. He appeared several times on television and made statements suggesting that I am responsible for my wife's absence. My wife's sister and family have also made negative statements against me. This created an environment of hate and anger against me and motivated people to leave threatening and malicious messages on my doorstep, front door, text messages, and through the mail. So these are the qualifiers to the attachments that he put on this. I see him shifting back again. He's moving the goalpost.
Yeah, because the evidence, so to speak, that he's using, the exhibits that he's using to portray the threats, they don't support the allegation of threat against him. They may be, you may be able to characterize them as malicious, etc., but there's nothing there to suggest a physical threat to life or safety, either for himself or members of his family who he professes that he wants to protect.
Yeah. And I'll go a little bit further. I don't even think they're malicious. I mean,
yeah,
maybe emotionally malicious, but they're not.
For him, they're malicious.
For him, yeah. There you go. But I don't think from a writer's perspective that, you don't have that, and certainly no threats, and there's nothing to back this up. So that's a good way to put it, Chris, that he's moving the goalpost and is trying to, it's like a smoke and mirrors type thing. He can say one thing, I'm going to present these documents, and maybe he's just hoping that the judge doesn't read the documents. That's the only thing I can think of.
Yeah. Thank you, Teresa.
He's discrediting his case by the exhibits that he's presenting because they don't support the allegation.
Yeah.
What say you, Vanessa? Weigh in here.
I wanted to weigh in on lines 23 to 25 because I feel like I can speak from firsthand experience. We had him on the show. That's simply not true. He did nothing of the sort. He just told the facts, and that was it. There was actually none of that went on. So
yeah, no, I agree with you. And he said the same thing to me.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Good
point.
You know, it's interesting, except for the guilty mind.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. There you go.
Yeah. So let's jump to page 6 now at the top, line 1. I've received recorded statements from a man who states that he will get me and that I could not hide, that he is not playing with me. And he states that he knows more about me, where I live, my social security number, my bank accounts. Furthermore, he states that he's watching me. And even if the court will get me off, he will get me after court. I didn't know he was going to court.
Yeah.
Other than for his guns.
Again, he expects, I think this is what we've been talking about, that in his mind, he expects for some reason that he will be going to court. And this is more of the same, that he's presenting something, he's trying to present an argument, but there's nothing to back this up whatsoever. It's just more of the same. He's trying to pound that point home, but it's empty. It's just an empty, he's wasting his time here.
Yeah, they're all red herrings, as we'd say, right?
Yeah.
And what struck me is line 5. He has a paradigm shift. He goes right back to Maya. But what's interesting here is, remember in the first statement he gave that we analyzed, guys, he never one time used her name. Okay?
Yeah.
I think he watched that statement analysis, because in this one, he uses her name one time.
Yeah, there's no personalization, is there?
Yeah, no. And here he calls, he again, line 5, my wife, okay, who's missing, by the way.
Yeah.
Okay, for 6 months. Okay.
And
however,
how do we know?
Yeah. However, right. My wife approves of my gun collection.
Who can verify that?
Hey, Chris, what you just said is exactly how most people would say this. But what he did, and I love that you just said that. I love it. It's so perfect, because what he just did there is he didn't say approves. He said approved. He just referred to his wife in the past tense.
Correct.
In context of, this is a missing person. So for those of us that look at this situation as that Maya is simply missing, and especially for her husband to say this, the appropriate way would be to say it exactly the way you did, but he did not. He referred to her in the past tense. That indicates that he has reason to believe that Maya is not coming home. It's a big deal. That right there is a big, big deal.
Yeah,
Well,
and there's
in
more.
fact,
Looking.
yeah.
Go ahead, Coop. Go ahead.
Yeah, in fact, take a look at that whole sentence. It's a great point that you make. It's all past tense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he dovetails our family from harm. He needs the guns that his wife approves of. And I'll read the whole sentence. My wife approved of my gun collection, and we have thoroughly protected, i.e., he's bridging together their relationship. We have thoroughly protected and defended our family from harm. Now, before Maya went missing, the logical question from an investigator's perspective, right, is, well, what kind of threats were you guys having before she disappeared? Not past tense or post disappearance, pre disappearance. What? Tell me about the threats you guys were having.
Yeah.
And man, I would tee that up in the interview almost immediately.
Yeah, because eventually he refers to himself as a gun enthusiast, but he's never suggested that there were threats made against he or his wife or family in the past to justify the reason that he wants the weapons returned to him. And that's why he's implying that that's why he purchased them to begin with, because of threats.
Yeah, good point. Interesting.
Yeah.
What say you, Vanessa? What say you on that one?
I mean, I agree with that too. When I was reading that, the past tense, I just think the whole thing is interesting, the way he words it. I know he says my family a lot, and maybe you guys can answer this better than I can, but it doesn't seem like he really refers to his children that much. He uses the word family, but it's mainly just I through this whole part. He throws in family once in a while, but it's just about, like I was saying last night, it's just about him throwing his adult temper tantrum, as I called it last night.
Yeah.
I'm reading it. So from lines 5 to 8, I'm going to count. He's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah. 6 eyes. So, Coop, where does your mind go when you see like that?
You see who the center of focus and attention is, and who he's most concerned about. He's never presented anything to suggest that his family is at risk of anything happening. He's trying to make the case for himself, but it is typically, and as the other statements that we've looked at, it's that ego-based perspective that this whole thing revolves around me. No longer is it about Maya and her disappearance. That term disappearance is so minimized as to what the concern is here. There's no effort to reflect on the worst case scenario. The worst case scenario for him is she left on her own volition and she's not coming back, and that's what's caused all this.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. So unpack that a little deeper, Coop, because he says, I am sickened and afraid with all these events, but when will this stop? How do I protect myself? I mean, Steve, Coop, and Vanessa, of course, but unpack, where do you think he's at here? What's going on here?
Well, I want to build on what was just stated, in that if we back up to that top section where he talks about this, he's received recorded statements from a man, it's non-specific man, saying that he's going to get him and he can't hide and he has a social security number and all that. If that was credible, the natural place to go with that is, because of this, I am afraid for my family, for my parents, for my kids. That's where the natural thought process should go. But it is all about him, which bolsters that most of this is just red herring and made up. And I wish I would have counted how many times throughout this statement that he talks about protecting his family. And he does it twice right here. How do I protect my family, myself? How do I protect myself? How do I protect my family? I guess if I just counted the word protect, I would see it numerous times within this statement without any real substance as to why it is he needs to protect his family. Why is, I just don't see it. I mean, we all have the right and we want to protect our family, but he's not giving anything here as to why there's some kind of threat or danger that has been posed to his family. I get having a firearm in the home, obviously. I'm a proponent of that, but he is the substance in his writing here is empty. There's nothing there.
You know, I would question if his attorney ever looked at this.
I don't think they did.
I don't either, because there's no case here. And if an attorney was behind this, at least consulting the verbiage that's used.
Yeah. Yeah. When you
consider,
when you first, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, Chris, when you first sent it over, that was my thought too, as what you just said, is that, oh, if this is an affidavit, I'm sure that the attorney wrote it. It's probably not even his writing, but I started reading it and I realized this is not the attorney's writing. This is his. I think his attorney just took it and put it in there.
Yeah. I had the same question.
Yeah. I'd be surprised if it was read by the attorney and or certainly approved. I can't imagine it was approved and recommended. Yeah, that this is really going to work well here.
I agree.
And I went back to try to count the many the words protect. So between our two channels, Vanessa, somebody will get that answer for us and tell us exactly.
How about compare also the reference to I versus my family?
There you go.
Oh, good one. Good one, Coop. Good one. Behind True Crime says right here real fast. Whoops. So concerned about them, but never as concerned with the bang sounds that occurred all the while the children were outside. So just for context, there is, information that perhaps there's a audio sound of the children playing outside late at night. And that would be the context of that statement. And thank you so much for that statement. So let's keep going here, unless there's something else you guys want to hit on real fast while we're still in this section.
One thing I noticed is what stuck out to me was when he says, but when will this stop? We don't know what this is, but I took it as all of this inconvenient looking for Maya is how I took that. And it didn't make sense to me.
Wow.
Yeah, that's a good point.
That's
why I invited her. Is that awesome?
Yeah.
Is that awesome?
I love that.
I was just going to say that.
Good job, Vanessa.
Good job. Really good.
Okay, so line 9, he goes, I have served in the U.S. Navy for some years, and he was an optometrist assistant. So I like to say basically he, set appointments for eye exams. Okay, so that's actually was his MOS in the Navy. Okay, it says, let's see here. I have served in the Navy, and he served. Okay, great. Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate your service. Love our veterans for sure. I served in the U.S. Navy for some years and remember the strict gun safety drills I learned. What's interesting, what struck me here is anybody with long-term service would not call them guns. They would call them weapons.
Weapons.
Or firearms.
Or firearms, yeah. They wouldn't call them guns.
Yeah.
So
Good
apparently
point.
he didn't take that class seriously.
Yeah.
Said, I value the right to own a gun and believe it should come with safety measures like background checks and secure storage. Yeah, we concur with that. I have done both requirements and I make sure my children and others are safe. In fact, I've carried a gun safety card, and he gives those are the exhibits down there. And I think this comes on the heel of this idea that there's a photograph of him and with weapons out on the table and the children around those weapons. And I think that was one of the foundational pieces for this restraining order. So I think he's trying to address that here. Thoughts on that?
He doesn't articulate what he does to make sure that children and others are safe. All he supports that with is the fact that he carries a gun safety card. We don't know what that incorporates, and in order to carry that card or have a card, how he qualified for it, what it means.
Yeah. Interesting.
I just know if I were to use this approach to trying to qualify as an expert witness, I would be laughed out of court.
Yeah, for sure. The other thing I noticed in this is that the way that he worded this is it's interesting. He says, I value the right to own a gun and believes it should come with safety measures. He said this as if it's the third person. It's not. He took himself psychologically out of this. Which tells me that this is something that, since he's psychologically not in this and believes it should come with safety measures. It's like someone describing someone else, and so it lessens the credibility here, the psychological commitment to what he is actually saying. And to bolster that, when he's talking about how he has met these requirements that he referenced to in the third person, and that last line is almost, you could almost add before it, in case you don't believe me, in fact, I have carried a gun safety card. It is a exclamation point. He's qualifying that how do I say this? He's making sure that we believe it. If you don't believe me, I've even carried a gun safety card.
Yeah, it's kind of like, and by the way, here's the capstone.
There you go.
Carry a gun safety card.
Yeah. So now you have to believe me.
Remember Saad, who's out sitting on the couch, right? It says, hey, if you don't believe me, go ask Saad. He's sitting there out on the couch. You know, he'll tell you everything that you need. Yeah, so he'll tell you everything you need to know about this case. Okay. Vanessa, thoughts on that? Anything you want to weigh in?
I basically just took it the same way. I value the right to own a gun. I just took this whole section as, you know, he wants his guns back, and here's my cards to help emphasize that point. You know, basically what they already covered.
Yeah, here's your sign.
There you go.
Here's your sign. Okay, well, and now we have a shift, and I think this is pretty interesting. And Steve, I don't know if you can see this line 15. Would you mind reading 15 through 18 and kind of?
Can we go back?
To 13? Go ahead, Coop. Yeah, of course.
Just 13 there.
Yes. Go.
The testimonies and narration of the police department or the police does not provide the truth and does not help in locating my wife. Now we're blaming again of why we haven't located his wife, because the police haven't provided the truth, and their narration hasn't helped in locating her, and does not resolve life's problems. Well, whose problems are we talking about?
Yeah.
Not about her disappearance, really, but more about the problems this has created for himself, life's problems. Pretty generic, but we know he's talking about himself. I want the court to know that I have not met nor have any past or present communication with the SPD. Then he talks about this Detective Harlow. So just the issue, how now it's blaming the police department. We introduced the police department and their lack of investigation, and how they're handling that investigation, which has created more of life's problems, not resolved them.
Good catch, Coop. Thanks
Yeah.
for keeping me honest. Anybody else? Any thoughts on that?
You nailed that. Yeah.
That's one. I got one check mark. That's good. I'm going to put that.
Yeah, well, and verse 18 and 19 I think are just ridiculous, because he goes, I have not resided nor worked in the city of San Diego, because he got detained on the freeway, which is in the San Diego jurisdiction. Okay. He thinks that San Diego, took his guns. Okay. And what he's saying there is, well, I don't reside nor work in the city of San Diego. Well, actually he does. He works at Balboa Naval Hospital. And so that means, he's in the city of San Diego, and he lives in Chula Vista, which is in the county of San Diego. But because some of the weapons are being held by San Diego PD, this detective here, it's somehow, his fault. And he even puts it in there. Verse line 21, he says, Naval Hospital compound at Balboa Medical Center. Well, that's the hospital in San Diego. It's in Balboa Park, San Diego.
Yeah.
So I don't understand that. Why that confusion? Why that confusion? I don't get that one personally.
To me, he's implying that the San Diego police don't have any jurisdiction in this case. What are they involved in it for? And why this Detective Harlow made the declaration. As if this is a defense that will be brought up, most likely. But it's another red herring. It has nothing to do with the whole purpose of why he's filing this.
Yeah, line 21, he goes into, Steve, you want to pick that up? I am not.
Yeah, you bet. And just before I do that, let me just add that we typically say that that de facto innocent people will argue actual innocence, and the guilty will argue legal innocence. And that is what you're seeing here. He's arguing he's arguing the legalities of it and legal innocence. And it holds no water. It has holes and there's no substance to it, but that's what he's doing. Sure. And I love this next part here, what he's doing here. And by the way, another part of what he did with talking about he works for the United States of America, he's telling us what a good guy he is, what a good citizen he is. And this is this relates back to the Superman thing, but it's the good guy principle, we call it. So he's building himself up. And now he says, I am not a violent or dangerous person, and I have not hurt nor harmed anyone. And my question is, where in the world did that come from?
Yeah, anyone. We're talking about one person, right?
Yeah.
There's only one person that we're concerned about here.
Yeah.
Not just anyone.
Yeah, exactly. And in the context of that, it's almost as if he's giving him this narrative about what a good citizen he is, and then after this, he's going to go into what a good dad he is, and what he does in his normal day. And it's like in the middle of this, he throws in, I am not a violent or dangerous person, and I have not hurt nor harmed anyone. This, for me, it relates back to the comment that he made about mysterious bang sounds at night. Why would you add that in here? It's just, I would put in somewhere, if it was in question that I was a violent or dangerous person, I would put it in somewhere. But in the context of where he put it in, it doesn't belong. And it's as if his brain just is like, again, this acute need to explain that he is not a violent or dangerous person. And when I see things come out in the location that they don't belong, just seemingly out of the blue, it's an indication that it's just pressing on his mind. It's just his brain's like, oh my gosh, we have this information, and it is just bleeding out. You got to get it out somehow, and it's kind of like this turning on this psychological pressure relief valve for him. He's got to get it out, and I still expect more context around it, but we don't have it here.
Yeah, that's a good point. It doesn't fit. It doesn't fit in that context.
Not at all. Not at all.
It's one of those things that, oh yeah, by the way.
Yeah.
I've never heard anybody.
Yep. Well, Albie says the document looks like something you would see as a self-representation in court. Yeah, good point.
Yeah.
Well, but Vanessa, what's on your mind when you read that one?
Well, I guess you could argue it's a long time ago, but our definitions of violent and dangerous must be different, because it's my understanding that he does have a violent charge, correct? In his past, so that's just patently not true.
Yeah, he stabbed somebody.
Right.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I teed this up because I knew that's where you were going to go, Steve, on this, and now that you've heard it, yeah, no, he had that I think he was a gangbanger as a kid at 14, and that record's been, he was in San Diego too, by the way. The gang's no longer around. They were just kind of an offshoot of a bunch of kids that were trying to be gang members, but they were serious. I mean, he did do something that rose to the occasion. So
interesting.
To Vanessa's point, so yeah, this doesn't make that a true statement. Now that he's been in the Navy and he's an American citizen and he's gonna make sure he takes care of San Diego, he doesn't do those things anymore. That was in his past. So
it's kind of interesting too. Sorry, Chris. It's kind of interesting too. He says inside the U.S. Naval Hospital compound. He emphasizes the Naval Hospital as the caring person that provides some type of support.
Good catch.
Support to people.
Yeah, that's a great catch.
Yeah, very good.
Just
who wants to take line 22? I am a law-abiding. Anybody want to grab that?
Yeah, I actually do.
Okay.
I love this. What we just saw with him saying, I am not a violent, dangerous person. I have not hurt nor harmed anyone. What comes next is actually key. And for me, it tells me that he likely has harmed somebody. So it's just fantastic that you just told me that he does have this violent past. Because what he does now is he says, I am a law-abiding citizen who gets up in the morning and cook breakfast for my 3 children, ages 4, 9, and 11. I take 2 of them to school and pick them up in the afternoon after school. I cook and feed them and clean up the house after work and take care of my children. I also take care of my parents when they are sick. My father was sick and hospitalized in January 2021. Just about the same time my wife left our home. And then he says, my wife's whereabouts remains a mystery. What he's doing there is describing what a good guy he is, what a good dad he is. And it goes deeper than that. He's actually normalizing this is what he would normally do, or he usually does every single day. So he's normalizing this. And the normal factor was what people will employ so that they don't have to actually commit to what they really do or really have done. And when they say something that may not be true, like I am not a violent, dangerous person, I have not hurt nor harmed anyone, and they add this, again, it's, if you don't believe me, look at this. I am such a good dad. I'm such a good guy that I do this. This is my normal routine, that I take care of my kids and I make them breakfast and I drive them to school and I clean the house. Well, who else is going to do that? I mean, this is what any normal person would do. But what he's doing here is he's letting us know that in his mind, he likely knows that he is not this person that he tried to portray himself as. He's not. This tells me that he is not a good guy. And if I didn't know anything about him stabbing someone, I would say right now he likely has hurt somebody, and it may be someone from his past, not just Maya that we're talking about. But I think that he knows that he's likely a dangerous person, and now he's trying to overcome that significantly by presenting this type of lifestyle and this type of person. But he's doing this in like a present tense situation or language, which is what any normal person would do. If that makes sense to you, I hope it does.
Yep.
Yeah.
Vanessa, Coop, thoughts? And thank you guys. Ron, welcome back from Aruba. Infamous, yes, absolutely. Love that he wrote this. And then, of course, Infamous again. He's all over the place. We couldn't agree any less. Yeah, he is. He's all over the place. Coop, Vanessa, what weigh in on that? What kind of dovetail on what Steve was just presenting?
Go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh, I just had the same thoughts basically that Steve did. That I thought it was an odd statement because he goes from law-abiding citizen to normal things that everyone does who has children. And I took that as, is that all he can come up with as examples? Because we all do that. And maybe he didn't have anything else to pull from.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, he does.
Because he doesn't give us any examples of what it means to be a law-abiding citizen. Those examples are what it means to be a decent parent. You're getting up with them, you're cooking for them, you take them to school and you pick them up. But it doesn't talk about all the other issues that aren't being done. He feeds them, cleans up the house, works, and takes care of his children. And that take care of their children. There's no detail about taking care of my children, particularly the emotional aspect of it. In the absence of their mother, takes care of his parents. Father's sick, hospitalized. So he's strengthening his position for the ultimate characterization of who he is as an individual in court. This is the kind of thing that will be presented to talk about, what a good, responsible caretaker he is. But it has nothing to do with being law-abiding.
So he made them Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, so he made them breakfast, but he never went to search for Maya.
Yeah.
So.
Good point. Yeah. That's a great point.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
I think that any mother that reads this is going to go, are you kidding me? That's just that's so normal. That's just the stuff that we do without even thinking about. I do that with my eyes closed. What about all the other stuff? And you guys mentioned this. It's the emotional stuff. That's where you really the parenting really comes in. This is just mundane task, and anyone can get a bowl of cereal out for their kids and go drive and pick them up. This is nothing.
Yeah. Well, and I think he has to reflect off of her, because that is the emotional bond between mother and child. And so what he's doing, to what I'm hearing here, and I totally agree, I think he's also not tying that emotional bond, because then that ties Maya back into the story. So he's got to one off her. He's got to put her over here. And he's doing that emotionally, and Vanessa, your point is great. Yeah. My wife's whereabouts remains a mystery. Okay. Yeah. Well, then there's a search every Saturday and Sunday. You're welcome to get out there and help out.
What are you doing to contribute to that? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And Lindsay, thank you. I wonder if Steve agrees with me. The word remain should not be pluralized in this statement. Accident or omission, Lindsay asked. And then 12 Step says, did Larry write this file with the court without an attorney. 12-step, just I'll answer that question. And then the second one's to Steve. Yes, it's our understanding is, the beginning of this statement has an attorney's signature and bar number on it. So now whether or not she wrote it or in conjunction with Larry or vice versa, I don't have that answer. So Steve, the second question or the second comment was, I wonder if Steve agrees with me that the word remains should not be pluralized in the statement, accident or omission. What say you?
Well, I actually had that whole sentence underlined, and with a question, what made him add this? My wife's whereabouts remains a mystery. Why the need to even add that at all?
Unrelated to anything above. Yeah.
Yeah. My my wife's whereabouts remain a mystery, remains. I'm not so caught up on the remain or remains with the S. I think it just depends on what you're used to hearing, where you come from. I think it would take a lot for us to break that one down, to really get down to the brass tacks of why add the S. But for me, it's that whole sentence. What made him add that? My wife's whereabouts remains a mystery.
And then, Steve, what about just preceding that, where it says just about the same time my wife left our home? Again, he's implying that she left on her own volition, voluntarily.
Yeah. He is implying, and that's a huge point of sensitivity in his whole narrative from his head, that my wife left our home. And it's interesting. Now that I just read that, his wife didn't leave the family; she left the home.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes me now back to what I was saying before about the passive language on the first page, when he said, "Unfortunately, I've been prevented from enjoying these blessings as a result of my wife's leaving our home." And I said, then that's passive language that takes the onus of leaving on, that she did it on her own. He's trying to imply that without actually saying it. It tells me that he knows better. He knows something else. Now that I think this confirms it. Since the time my wife left our home, not that my wife left me or left our family or anything like that. She left the home, but it's what condition did she leave the home in?
Mm-hmm.
That's the information. It's critical information that he's leaving out right there. And I think that's the context that produced my wife's whereabouts remains a mystery. And, I think that in and of itself is telling, is that maybe what your listeners' point was, maybe remains, meaning were they getting to thinking that was like body remains or something like that? I'm not quite sure. But just the fact that he's saying that this is a mystery, that maybe there's a possibility she's going to be found. I don't know. We could toy with that quite a bit, but there's huge sensitivity there in how she left the home.
It's interesting too that he adds that she left about the same time, and then her whereabouts remain a mystery. But preceded by, my father was sick and hospitalized in January 2021, and before that, I take care of my parents when they're sick. To add just about the same time my wife left our home, and by the way, her whereabouts remain a mystery. It's almost like, I've got all this responsibility. I take care of everybody. I take care of the kids, take care of my parents. And now to add to all that burden, my wife left the home. How dare her to do that at that particular time when I have this burden facing me of taking care of everything and everybody. And again, this issue about her leaving at the worst and most inconvenient time on her own.
Yeah. Those words encompass, I think, all of it. And that's what I was talking about before, that He's using words that will get his point across, but yet it encompasses other things as well, things that he may not want to tell us. And when you start breaking it down, and why did he say that in that particular way, that's where you start seeing that, oh, well, yeah, I think the context is likely he's trying to get this particular point across, like you were saying, Coop, but it also encompasses that there's information that he's trying to conceal about her, how she left the home. Very good point. It's a mystery.
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Yeah, and then any other thoughts, because we have another paradigm shift here again. For
like
context,
he's answering a question.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. Coop. And we now go into his uncle. So for context, there's information, or there's things that have been around that maybe, and this is a maybe, somebody was seen coming to the house early in the morning, the night that Maya disappears, and later on, when the PD went to get the guns, they found some of his guns over at Uncle Ricky's house, and there was a thought that maybe this was the gentleman that came over to the house at 2-3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, so I find it really interesting that he goes from my wife's a mystery to, oh, let me tell you about Uncle Ricky. Okay. And, almost immediately, infamous. Thanks, guys. Miss Vanessa, appreciate all the attention we got him shaking his puts. Okay, thank you so much. Okay, well, hopefully he's not, because we've got those little babies that we all have to, think about as well, right? He's still got 3 little children at home, and we don't know the totality of the circumstances. So let's always, but I appreciate your statement on that. But so, what do you think about that, paradigm shift again, where, he goes in line, line 27, on page 7, he goes, yes, I collect guns as a hobby and interest, right after my wife remains a mystery, okay, with my Uncle Ricky, Lincoln, Uncle Rick, who also collects these guns.
I love it.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. Yeah,
tell me why.
Jumping at the bit here. It's just this is the same pattern that we've seen on the previous to this. This is in direct correlation, in direct context of his wife leaving, and her whereabouts is a mystery. And who does he bring into it now? Uncle Ricky, and he brings guns into it. Yes, and I love that he answered a question that wasn't asked. That right there, when they do that, that is definite self-reflection. That is definitely an acute need to explain something that wasn't even asked. Oh my goodness, that's a big deal. And so he's in correlation with leaving and her whereabouts remain a mystery. It has something to do with guns and Uncle Ricky. It's just amazing to me how the brain works. And he has set the pattern in this. We've seen it time after time in just this short, the first 2 pages of this affidavit that he wrote. Pretty amazing.
I'd only add that he's anticipating the defense having to answer the question about his gun collection and what he used that gun collection for.
The use.
So he's already answering it, before they ask the question.
Yeah.
Interesting. Good point, Coop. Vanessa, where are you going here? I can see you're thinking. Oh, Carrie, thank you so much. Rotten Ricky, clean up Kathy. Yes, thank you. Go ahead. What's your thoughts?
I had a similar thought, basically, that he threw him in there at that point, and I agree that it links into where she is. Like, he's throwing his uncle in there in case he becomes, I don't know the word I'm looking for, becomes involved in anything.
Yeah. I mean, don't just look at me, look at Uncle Ricky too.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's
Some
the
other
kind of
dude.
family member. Yeah, son. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's that guy right there.
Yeah, that's
that guy. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about remains as memory and gesture, but doesn't? I missed that. Let me grab that real fast. Dale, can you put that? Whereabouts remains a mystery in general, but doesn't say it's a mystery to him specifically. Inbox. Yeah, interesting. Yeah, good point.
Hey, can I just give a shout out to Inbox there? That's my sister right there.
Oh, it is. Well, if I would have known that.
It sounds like you need to bring her on.
She's pretty sharp. She's pretty sharp. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate your sister coming in here. And by the way, just as a quick recap for everybody, if you're just joining us, we've got almost 1,100 people here right now, and so we've got Vanessa from Unmasked. If you're not a member of her channel, get over there, hit the subscribe button. We've got Steve Johnson from Truth to Lies, and we're going to have all of their information, by the way, at the end of this program below this video, so you'll be able to link to their websites. And Steve's got some great stuff over there, and of course, the executive director of the Cold Case Foundation, my dear friend Greg Cooper, who also ran the BAU and has trained profilers all around the world. I mean, from the FBI, they come in, and Greg was at the academy in Quantico, and so these are the real deal. And we're just grateful that each of you are here tonight, and we're grateful, and hopefully that this panel has been able to be assembled here, and we're hoping you're picking something up, because I certainly am. This evening, whenever these guys all get together, and it's just fun to have Vanessa here as well. She's just a sharp mind. Okay, so I love where he goes here on page 7. He throws Uncle Ricky under the bus pretty quickly. I mean, that wasn't even a heartbeat, and Uncle Rick has all the disassembled AR-15s at his house, right? Boy, where have we seen that?
Times.
Yeah, and he goes lines 1 through 7. He goes 5 of his father guns that were given to him after his father passed away, though apparently those were taken as well. Let's see here. There is no now he has a shift, another paradigm shift, where he goes, there is no significant danger to me to have access to firearms. It's merely the opinion of this detective, who I have never met. So, because this detective has custody of his guns, he somehow is projected that he's a threat, or that he perceives that this detective thinks he's a threat, when it's actually the court that has held these guns. So it's a court order. I think somebody needs to remind our audience that this is a court order. And Carrie, we love the television family as well. We appreciate you weighing in here. Prayer walk going right now in my heart with them. So they walk every couple of days for this sweet woman who's been missing. And Richard and Maya Richard and Mary, Chris, her sister, guys, for the last 7 months, every weekend, and sometimes more during the week, they're out searching. They're working hand in hand with the Chula Vista Police Department. I can tell you that. I had a call with them again, just yesterday. And not only the family, but Chula Vista PD. And Greg, what I'm talking about as well. Yeah. This case is actively fluid. Okay. Now, what we have to keep in mind, that every step we make in the YouTube community could potentially impact this case. Okay. With a plus or minus. So, we don't want to be stepping into something where there's already landmines, out in the field. And so the fact that he's laid this out here, and that the fact that the family has an amazing line of communication with Chula Vista, and they're working with those guys, the FBI, the DA's office, everybody's involved in this caper. They are actively searching for Maya. except for one person.
Yeah.
And that's who we're talking about tonight in terms of this statement that was given. So that said, hey, verse 8, line 8, guys, let's measure off on that one. Tell me what your thought process is there. There's no significant danger.
I love the qualifier, significant danger. What does that mean? Well, it could lead one to believe that there's no significant danger now, because the reason that there may have been a significant danger before is taken care of.
Yeah, I agree. Why they need to qualify that?
Yeah.
No significant danger.
Not now.
Which takes us back to what he said, that I am not a violent or dangerous person, and I have not hurt or harmed anyone. Which we know, which you guys pointed out, is a proven lie. So I think that's the need here it bolsters that need to qualify that statement right there.
Yeah.
Vanessa?
I just thought it was a strange statement, blaming it on the detective. I took that as another kind of distorted thought process of his, which he seems to have throughout this response.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, because then he breaks down that, he breaks down the type of weapons that he has. I mean, he gets into the details, right? I mean, they're not considered assault weapons. Okay, great. He bought them from a licensed federal firearms dealer, FFL. All my guns purchased have gone through California's a 10-day waiting period. And he lays that all out. So he followed all that. And then all my firearms are serialized, so just in case they get lost, or stolen. I store my long rifles disassembled, keeping one or two fully built for my family and home defense purposes. So basically he says, yeah, I've got 2 of these ARs ready to go just in case. Okay. Nothing significant there from my perspective. I mean, it's like, okay. Yeah,
it's kind of interesting though. He emphasizes all that and how much care he's given to taking care of those weapons and keeping them safe, but he's given more care to those weapons, and of course he qualifies it as assault, suggesting that if they're not assault weapons, they couldn't be used for any other purpose. That he's done and given more care to those weapons than he has looking for his wife.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, he's got some detail here, doesn't he?
Yeah.
He's got some detail, and then he calls out the type of rounds, 7.62. And then he's got a model 45-95, 45 caliber semi-auto rifle. I mean, that's a serious weapon right there. I mean, that puppy's throwing 45s out. I mean, the 7.62, that's enough to. If you're not familiar with guns, those rounds tumble when they come out of a barrel. The velocity is so fast, and they roll. They tumble, and when they hit you, they don't hit you straight on. They hit you while tumbling, and it just causes an immense amount of damage. I mean, I can't tell you how many crimes I've seen, and you guys know what we're talking about here. That these are just drastic rounds. I mean, they're horrific. And the 45 round is a slower round, so when that hits you, it hits you and flattens out because it's so slow. The velocity of that round impact just kind of will drop you almost instantly. So he's got those. He likes those. And then he talks about, the PD grabbing them. Now, anything in here you guys want to jump at? Well, because I was just kind of wanting to keep moving on this.
Yeah, there's just one.
Go ahead, Steve.
One point that he made in line 16 or line 15 and 16. These are not able to be fired or have been fired since being put together. And the only reason I point that out is that he is going to make a point throughout the rest of this statement of saying that these guns, and not necessarily just these, the other guns that he's referring to, that they have not been fired. And so I just wanted to add that too, because this is one of those things that I would count as we go along, how many times he says that his guns have not been fired. So moving forward, that may be important.
Yeah. So you're suggesting there's a potential correlation to the 8 banks.
Yes, I am.
Okay. That's why I love you, buddy. Okay. So let's jump out to page 8. He cites the California Penal Code, which, section 3515A, meaning basically you can't have automatic weapons. I've never taken a long rifle out of my hound to shoot. Never been fired. There's another reference to it, Steve, line 2.
There it is.
Most of the disassembled in a lock safe container, which i.e. goes to the question of whether the guns are laid out around the house where pictures are taken with kids. He then now has high point rifles or seized at his Uncle Ricky's house. What? They're not part of my collection. Why is he talking about the weapons at Uncle Ricky's house that aren't his? I thought that was strange.
I think it's still that psychological connection that we saw earlier to when he talked about Maya's whereabouts remains a mystery. He didn't say Maya, he said my wife's whereabouts remains a mystery, and then went right into owning guns and bringing Uncle Ricky into it. And I think it's that same mentality, that same thought process that he has there. He can't get away from the guns being connected to Uncle Ricky.
Yeah, and he does kind of qualify it in 3 and 4, where he suggests that the PD kind of tied those 2 guns to him, but he's responding, well, those aren't my guns. And then he goes to say, but I do own 2 Gen 4 Glock 26 pistols and 1 registered Mossberg shotgun, which is obviously a tactical shotgun, right? The Mossberg shotgun. And I actually own a Gen 4 Glock. I own 1 of them. That's the only gun I have. So he's got 2 of them.
It seems that these are just preparing for defense. He's just answering questions that he's anticipating are going to be asked of him. Maybe if I can answer these, maybe they won't pose these questions. I saw that it's kind of interesting. He says, again, I have never taken my long rifles out of my home to shoot.
Yeah. A reason why he took them out.
Yeah. Now, what does that suggest? He didn't say, it doesn't suggest that he didn't have them in his home and did shoot them in the home.
Yeah.
Just out of the home.
Yeah, interesting.
Go
ahead.
No, just to that point, it was that he connected it, or he separated it with and these have never been fired. It's that, again, that emphasis that they have never. Why do you have to keep telling us that they have never been fired? I mean, it goes back to the hashtag Me Too movement thing. And we saw that every time somebody kept talking about something, those are the guys we were going to look at to. Those are the ones abusing the women or the kids or the girls or whatever it was. And this is kind of the same thing. He keeps talking about it, and every time he mentions it, it brings our attention around to, wait a minute, I think he has fired this, because how many times do you have to emphasize it?
It's like the Shakespearean statement, methinks thou protest too loudly.
There you go.
Over again, right?
There you go.
Yeah, and somebody in the chat said maybe the lawyer, said, hey, just come out with all the guns that you have, just put it all out there. And that could very well be, right? Why, there it is, discerning light. Yeah, that could very well be. But then he gets into another shift, line 12. I could have stored all my, basically he's saying, had law enforcement told me you were coming, okay, I could have put all this stuff away correctly, okay?
Yeah.
Yes, a gun can be forensically tested to see if it's been fired. Correct. Yes, to answer your questions. So he goes, I could have stored all my ammunition, magazines, parts, and firearm if given the chance. Well, okay.
That's funny.
Instead, I was served with a gun violence restraining order. On the day of expiration, I was not given the opportunity to store these things being taken away by LE. Now, the fact that he puts LE in there is really interesting, because remember, in the very first analysis we did, remember he said, I watched those shows, the first 48
Oh yeah,
and,
right.
and a couple of other things. Okay. Well, that's not an attorney speaking. Okay. Attorneys don't say, yeah, LE did this. Attorneys write it out and say law enforcement.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think, she has cut and paste, some of his comments here that were pretty interesting, because now he goes into a diatribe of exactly what happened when San Diego pulled him over on the freeway or at Chula Vista. Okay. And he understands. I understand that only line 15. I was also detained illegally during the second search of my home. Chula Vista police pulled me over on the 5 freeway in the San Diego jurisdiction. I understand that only SDPD, Sheriff, or Highway Patrol are able to pull me over on the freeway in San Diego. Well, here's a hint, okay? When you get a badge in California, in the middle of that badge is the seal of California, okay? That means anywhere in public, a law enforcement officer is able to contact you. So that's just a hint, okay? That's exactly what it means. Now, you work for a municipality, okay? But that seal, you take the oath to the California Constitution, okay? So, and the U.S. Constitution. So that means if a Chula Vista police officer happened to be in Oceanside, hypothetically, and that officer witnesses a robbery, that Chula Vista police officer can take action because of that seal in the middle of his badge, okay? And this is one of these things where they pulled him over on the freeway that happened to have, CHP cars on it, okay? And then so this makes notes. He's just basically throwing the cops under the bus, which I understand. It comes with the territory, right? I think we all know that. And, I can't fault him for that. However, the other side of that coin is they were doing their job and they couldn't let you back into the house while an active search warrant was going on. That's basically how I'm reading this. You guys seeing anything else in that one?
No.
Now, more importantly, while he's thrown him under the bus, okay, this is the first time he uses Maya's name, line 20, page 8. The Chula Vista police searched my house on May 7, 4 months after Maya's disappearance, and while I was away from home. All right, Steve. Thoughts?
Can I just mention one other thing real quick before Steve addresses that? If you go up there between 17 all the way through 19, again, he's implying here that his rights were violated. It's another red herring, and it's another projection as to illegal searches, illegal arrests, etc. that may be used as possible defenses.
Yeah, he's looking for fruit of the poisonous tree, right from the get-go.
Yeah, I would agree with that too. I think this here, what you just read on line 20, I would have to go back and check, but in all these other areas, if I'm not mistaken, where he refers to Maya as just my wife, aren't they in context? He's just describing things that happened, or his thoughts and feelings about how the world is treating him. And here there's direct involvement from the Chula Vista police searching his home, which means that he is now a potential suspect or investigative lead, at least. and it brings, in context, for whatever reason, it brings Maya's name out. So I for whatever reason now, Maya is more personal, and it may be that just that he's feeling the weight of the legal consequences, that there's a search. And, you know, as we look back and recite things that we have experienced, we generally recite them in a way that we feel that same weight, and our language will reflect it in chronological order as we go along. And it may be that he's feeling more weight at that point in time that he's being detained by the police, and it's maybe one of those moments in time where he's like, maybe things aren't going so well for me, or things aren't going according to plan, or something like that. But whatever it was, that's what brought Maya's name out and made her more of a person to him.
You know, he also further down line, he starts to make reference to her down in the next page, verse 4. She would not have allowed me to have this collection. It becomes more personal. So he's introducing her personally up above where you've just identified. And then I think he gets a little more personal with her in terms of strengthening his own position as to why he even had a gun collection, and that it was justified because she wouldn't have allowed me to have one had she not supported that. So it just becomes, in my mind, it becomes a little more personalized.
Good.
Yeah. Vanessa, what are your thoughts?
I actually had a question on this. I guess it would go to Steve. When he rarely does use her name ever in the last statement and then in this one, is that just simply him distancing himself, or is there more to that?
No. I think that's exactly what it is. It's more of a depersonalization, and which is that he is distancing himself from her, and I love that you just said that. It made me go a little bit deeper with the point that I was just trying to make, and that and all the other references to her when he distanced himself from her by not using her name, now he's feeling that legal weight, and so he wants the police to know, hey, wait a minute, we're more united. I'm closer to her than you think, and you know, this is, hey, it's Maya, it's not just my wife. And so he's wanting to now project this appearance of this unification and closeness to her. So yeah, it just, what you just said there just made that go a little bit deeper. I appreciate that.
It's interesting.
Yeah. So yeah, because here, you know, to everybody's point in page 9, where he starts to personalize this family environment a little bit more. He talks about the Christmas tree, you know, still in place. You know, he talks about, you know, Coop, to your point there, verse 4, believe our children are, and he qualifies it where he says, my wife left the family and is not returned.
Yeah.
Okay. Even though it's a mystery in the lines before that, okay, it's a mystery, but here, well, no, it's kind of not a mystery. It sounds like she left the family, okay, and so there's that, you know, there's that yin and yang that he keeps going back and forth on, and she would have not allowed me to have this collection, as Coop, you pointed out, if she believed our children or the general public would be in danger. So now he's going back to Superman, okay? And the reason he has all these guns, and Maya would have let him have them, is because, you know, I get to take care of the general public because they're in danger. Okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm not wrapping that quite, you know, yet, but that's fine. I will not have this gun collection if I will not have this gun collection if my children or community will be in danger. Again,
That's future tense.
Back to, Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, and that's a huge red flag, right? I think all of us would agree. That's a triple dog flag here,
Yeah, and it
especially
goes
with
back.
Twitch.
It goes back to the other things that he said that we already pointed out that are unnecessary to say, except seemingly unnecessary to us. But he had this acute need to persuade, and every time he says something like that, it actually is a strike against him. And I think we're down to 4 or 5 strikes at least in that particular area. And Chris, let's not miss this on this same page on line 2. He's talking about this particular gun. And again, he says, it has never left my home and have never been fired. That is a passive statement. He doesn't say, I have never taken it out of my home. And he doesn't say, I have never fired it. It's a passive statement. And he wants us to accept that without him psychologically committing to it. And if we do that, then we are complicit in what I believe is his deception, and we can't do that. He needs to psychologically be in that, and he's not. Now, this also goes down to line 4. My wife left the family and has not returned. However, that refutes or minimizes what he just said. I always find that fascinating when they throw the however or the but in there right after they try to make this assertion. Listen to this. She would not have allowed me to have this collection if she believed our children or the general public would be in danger. Now, ask yourself, from the point of view of you have a missing wife, how would you phrase this? And I think that you would phrase this, she would not allow me to have this collection. But what he said, she would not have allowed me to have this collection. That is a past tense reference, once again, to his wife that is allegedly just missing. And here we go. This is another huge strike against him. This tells us that he has reason to believe that she is not capable of coming back on her own. She's not capable of coming back. It's a past tense reference in which we see most of the time when the victim ends up being deceased. I'm not saying that she is. I'm just saying that from past experience, that's where I see that, and that's the general outcome. Not every time, but it tells me that he has reason to believe or knows that she is not capable of coming back. It's a big deal.
Yeah, that is very significant. Absolutely.
Any thoughts, Coop, Vanessa? And I know, guys, we're running late on this, but I think it's important. Well, I've got everybody here tonight, or we could have broken this up into 2 parts, but we're 2 hours into it, so I'm just going to roll. If you guys are okay with that. You good with that?
Sure.
Just finish it, yeah.
Yep, go ahead, Vanessa.
Oh, no, go ahead. I just noticed above he had another reference to explaining away something that was found. When he talks about the police damaging his home, he made sure to throw that in there in case that came up later too. And he has a picture of it in the exhibits.
Yeah. And he makes reference to illegal searches and seizures.
Yeah, Lindsay says, what about Maya in the statement? Yeah, we'll be in danger. It's a great point, Lindsay. You're right. I mean, Maya's not in the statement there. She's really, I mean, he's bridging Maya into it, but she's not really the focus of his thought process there.
Yeah. In this verse 4, my wife left the family and has not returned. I think she intended on leaving prior to all this occurring, because he's made that reference several times. And of course, we know that she did go to speak with, or had an appointment to speak with, a divorce attorney, as I recall. Is that correct? Right?
Yep. So
my wife left the family, and from his perspective, that's exactly what she would have been doing, is leaving the family. It includes him, of course, and it includes the children. And of course, there would have been a fight with custodial issues, etc. But from his perspective, she intended on leaving the family and has not returned. But having said that, basically he's saying, however, by the way, while she would have done that to our family, she would not have allowed me to have this collection. Now he's trying to use her, whereas first in a negative light, now in a positive light, to strengthen his position as to why he had the collection to begin with. So he's denigrating in one statement, and immediately now he's using her to support why he had that collection to begin with, because she wouldn't have allowed him to have that collection if she believed our children or the general public was in danger. They don't connect. Those two statements don't connect with each other, but he's trying to use contrary statements.
Yeah. That's one of the reasons I believe that a lot of this is deceptive, because it is so contradictive, and there's confusion in his language, confusion in his mind. And I can pick 100 different statements that are proven to be deceptive and show them to you, and it'll be very similar to this, that there's confusion and contradiction and ambiguity and passive language, just like we're seeing in this one. It's really textbook, actually.
And Steve, what about this? It says, I will not have this gun collection if my children or the community will be in danger. Now he's not referring to his wife. She's no longer in danger. My children.
That's interesting, Coop.
Yeah.
He totally cut her out of it.
Yeah.
That's a fantastic point right there. And it came after there's critical information that's missing about his wife, how she left the family. He's implying one thing, but it's actually critically withheld information there. And then he referred to her in the past tense. He knows she's not coming back. And then he completely cut her out of the language. It's a progression. That's fantastic. That is a fantastic point.
And then the last sentence, he says, I believe I have done everything in my power to keep my family safe. Well, what about Maya? What has he done to keep her safe? What has he done to try to find her and return her home?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, the hero would be out banging the drums.
Yeah, just what her family's doing.
Yeah, exactly. Those are the heroes.
Yeah,
her family are the heroes.
That's for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think some of this, I'm sure we can grab a little bit more, but he basically gets down to, I no longer have any firearms in my possession. And it's kind of like, yeah, and that's why the guns were taken by the court. For some other reason, the court and the PD probably had, and you guys know how this rolls. You're sitting there with a judge in chambers, and the judge says, what do you got? And you say A, B, C, and D, and here's my affidavit. And then the judge has a chat and says, okay, go get them, and bring the receipt back. And then the judge says, so what's your gut? And so in here, the judge looked at this, and he says there in line 8 on page 10, I no longer have any firearms in my possession. All are in the custody of LE and or stored with a licensed gun dealership, preventing me from purchasing firearms, which violates my Second Amendment. And not only to be able to protect my family, myself, and our home, but violate one of my unalienable rights as Americans, depriving me with my pursuit of happiness. I'm an avid gun collector, he goes on to talk about. But again, to your guys' point just a couple of minutes ago, this is a total shadow of what the big problem is here. The big problem is, right, Maya's been missing almost 7 months, 6 months at this point. And I've seen a couple of comments, and I have to agree, he put a lot of effort into this statement, much more than I've seen him, and I think just the general public has seen him, and I think we would all love to see where him engaged a little bit more, at least give the children an opportunity to see the other side of their family. That hasn't happened. So I think we're running into 2.5 hours. We'll kind of sum it up. There's some text messages in here. I want to be sensitive to some of the people that attach some letters here. So I really don't want to hit those tonight, but I guess we could have a much longer conversation about probably some more of this, and like we did with the Morphew case, we had a part 2. So I'm just waiting for that hearing, and maybe we can reassemble on part 2 because I think we nailed that one, that first one. Yeah. And we'll see where this is going to go. But we're not calling him a suspect. We're not calling him a person of interest. That's up to LE, and they haven't done that yet. And the moment they do that, then we'll kind of dovetail into that. I will definitely agree 100% in my experience. This this one just doesn't look right, smell right, or quite frankly, heading in the right direction. So that's my 2 cents. And what I like to do is give the last word. And tonight, Coop, I'm going to give you the last word tonight, Coop, if that's okay with you. And so we're going to start with Vanessa. Tell us, what your thoughts are, and I want to thank you personally for being here. You got a great channel, and you have a brilliant mind, and I think these guys would agree with me that you were, you held your own in the house tonight. So I'm glad you were here, and I appreciate you being here. So,
absolutely.
Tell us what you think.
Thank you. I'm very honored to be on such an esteemed panel. Definitely. So thank you. Actually, I had just more of a quick question for Greg. You talked about patterns at the very beginning. Yeah. Are you able to look at everything that is going to happen from the beginning when she went missing to now and predict how you think he's going to behave the rest of the investigation moving forward?
Yeah, I think past behavior is predictive of future behavior. That's the principle that we usually look at. And a change in that behavior is usually precipitated by some other event, some more information, which he has utilized in this written statement that we just looked at. He jumps back and forth because he's drawing on information that seems to be detached, but they're concerns. He makes references to these statements of, as Steve was suggesting, they're not connected. Well, they're not connected because these are red flags in his mind that draw attention to him and potentially the perspective of culpability. So that's the only time you're going to see real changes come in those patterns. But based upon his behavior now, he says he's cooperative. It doesn't appear that he's been cooperative with law enforcement. Initially, there was some cooperation. He's not participating in any searches, and so I'd expect to see the exact same thing. The only thing I'm really alarmed with, with respect to his legal counsel, is that while they may have their name on this, it doesn't appear that it was authored by them. And I really think if there was much effort in reviewing it, trying to detail a case to return those firearms to him. So I wouldn't expect anything different from him at this point, unless at some point he becomes a person of beyond interest and becomes a suspect or the suspect, and it can be communicated to him in his best interest to further cooperate, which he has not heretofore. And that would be in his best interest. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it did. Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. And so, Steve, what can I say about my buddy, Steve Johnson? Tell everybody your new website. I can't thank you enough for taking your time out here tonight. And guys, I'm here to tell you, Steve is the real deal. And what you heard tonight was just, I know how his mind works. I've been around him a couple of times now to figure out, I just had to put a racehorse in the corral for a couple of minutes for the sake of time for YouTube. Okay. That's the easiest way to pronounce this. But Steve, I can't thank you enough for you're always a gentleman. And quite frankly, I've been amazed at some of your work and some of the things that you do for law enforcement and for victims' families all across the world. So, tell everybody a little bit about your website again, and then your final thoughts on this, and then we'll turn it up to Greg.
Yeah, thanks, Chris. Just my sentiments are the same as Vanessa's. Is just an honor to be associated with you all. What we're doing here is just something that for those of us that do this kind of work, we've been in law enforcement and criminal investigations, and we just have this drive for justice and to help the victims and help the families and to put a stop to those that are harming society. And it's just one of those. Larry talked about his unalienable rights, and it's just one of those things that's just built into us. And I'm just grateful for the opportunity to be able to do it. On my website at truthtolies.com, brand new website, I've got a free PDF there that you can download, and I've got one course on that site right now that is the whole enchilada, if you will, for law enforcement. It's the entire course that we teach in the beginning to get these law enforcement officers a ton of information to get them started. It goes beyond that, but this is the course that'll just give you everything, more than you would need in the beginning. It's really the whole everything for the criminal investigator and professional investigator. So it's available right now to the general public as an online course. I hope that you go check it out. And regarding this statement that we went over, Chris, you said that you had to crown me, and you're absolutely right. I get into these and there's just so much information that's coming out in the language, and it just excites me from an analytical point of view of how much the brain knows and cannot conceal. And, Larry, in my opinion, is just giving away the farm here. And you take it into context or add to it what we did before with that interview that he did. And, he just really points to exactly where the investigators need to look. He's given us a timeline. He's told us all these points that are the most sensitive to him. And he's made it clear that his focus is on, and I think Vanessa is the one that said this earlier, that he's focused more on his own appearance. He's focused on the me, myself, and I, rather than his wife, Maya, his kids, his family. He wants to protect. He says he wants to protect, but yet he gives there's no substance to what he wants to protect from. And let me just point out too, in all of this, he said he never fired his guns. Guys, I don't know about you, but I would not feel comfortable defending my family. And I've heard it from others that have bought guns to defend their family. In order to do that and feel comfortable with it, you fire your weapons. You go out and you fire your weapons. You learn how to use them. And according to Larry, he has not done that. And so it just, again, that's one of those things that doesn't make sense. It's contradictory to how one would normally act. So I think there's just so much in this. I look forward to hearing more, if more is presented, whatever that may be. I'd love to do a part 2 on this if we get the opportunity to. It's just an honor to be able to be associated with guys that are and women that are just driven for justice like you all are.
Thank you, Steve. That's very kind. And yeah, absolutely. As things start to come together, we're definitely going to do a part 2. I think I got to hear what you're going to say behind the scenes here. So I don't want to also disappoint our viewers here, but I just, before I turn it over to Coop, I just also want to say thank you, everybody who supports our channel. We sure love you. We appreciate your all of our mods. What a great community we have. We're building here, and we appreciate your kindness and your consideration, and just you being here at night with us and sharing these thoughts and ideas. And so, to my dear friend Greg Cooper, everybody, I want you to know he's the real deal. And I want to give him the closing word here.
Could you clarify that?
Well, I'm going to let that float in the environment and see where it goes. How about that? Okay. And we're going to have a special with Greg, the making of a profiler. Greg has, been involved in some of the highest profile serial murders cases, quite frankly, in the United States, and he doesn't talk about them too much unless you know him. And I happen to know him, so we're going to have him back, and we're going to break some of that stuff down. But Greg, final thoughts on tonight's program, and what do you think, bud? And then Dylan, take us out when Greg's done.
Thanks, Chris, and thanks, Vanessa, for participating with us. I think you add an extra insights and element that often is overlooked, but shouldn't be. And that is somebody with your background and experience and perspective, as has been seen this evening. And we've all been trained here in one capacity or another. You also are a trained investigator, insurance investigation. But outside of that is the personal experience that you've had in life. And being in this situation, being the same gender as what we look at right now as potentially a victim, and that's Maya. You can see the strength, and to the audience, the strength of gathering together people with varied backgrounds and experiences and education and training, and how much more insight there was collectively together as we discussed this than there would have been if we were working by ourselves independently.
Amen.
And that, and that's I think that's from the Cold Case Foundation's perspective, that's the key element that we attempt to use with respect to providing resources to law enforcement agencies and victims' families, is presenting these case assessments from various backgrounds working together. And as a result of that, we create this whole new perspective and a way to look at a case, even a statement like we've talked about tonight. Look how many observations were made and the interpretations of those observations. And certainly some of it's based on experience, but in terms of professional training, but even more is that personal experience and the experience that you bring to the table with us, Vanessa, that we couldn't get from anybody else. So thank you for participating with us and allowing us to participate with you. And Steve, well, of course, everybody here is walking in Steve's shadow. So we can all say, just in case we don't know anything, we just say, yeah, I agree with Steve. I support what Steve said.
Too kind.
But, yeah, well, anyway, it's great to be working with you all. And Chris, my friend, here's a guy that never beats his drum. He's had more homicide investigations under his belt than I think any of us collectively here in the audience, and as much as anybody who may be watching. And he's got a legacy of success that all of us admire and respect. And thanks for this great show that you're putting on, Chris. You're doing a great job, and it's just nice to be a participant. Yeah. And by the way, I think if the audience isn't aware, Chris is our Director of Law Enforcement Relations for the Cold Case Foundation. And as all can see, there's a good reason for that. So thanks a lot.
Greg has me kissing babies and shaking hands. That's what he means.
That's right.
So, well, we appreciate each and every one of you, your dear friends, and look forward to the next one. Thank you, everybody, for being here. We're grateful. Get to the Cold Case Foundation, sign up for live, get over to Steve's website, see some of his programs, and get over to Vanessa's page and make sure you subscribe and like that. Dylan, thank you for everything you do, pal, behind the scenes. We sure love you. You're the best, son. Let's take us out and let's go to Hawaii.
Hard working every day, I'm stressed out 24/7, babe. No timeouts, wish we could fly away. You and I go to our favorite place. Oh yeah, make special memories together. I'll be your company now and forever. I say we fly away, you and me, go to our favorite place. Feeling the sun on my face in Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. With you, Hawaii. I need a summer breeze.